This is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I ask, who makes this stuff up? Welcome in. We are live here on this Thursday and appreciate you guys joining us here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. Of course, I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Coming up on the show, we got some Falcons news to get to as well. The second half of the Major League Baseball season and more on the Braves schedule and where some critical junctures could be before the end of the season. We will get to that coming up here on today's show. First segment brought to you by our good friends at BlueNile.com. I wanted to start today, lists, right? Like, I know we're in the dead period right now when it comes to sports, and everybody's got a list, right? And I am both a fan of lists, but not a fan of lists. Like, I always find them interesting to read, and I get clickbaited every time. You put out a list, I'm going to read it. Not because I generally am curious about what you have to say. Just it's like one of these barometers I'll use of where are people ranking this and that and the other, and it sort of just gives me an idea. And about 8 out of 10 lists I look at and I go, yeah, that's jacked up. And so I came upon an annual list here that has each year ESPN does this, what do you call it? The future power rankings, projections for all 32 teams for the next 3 seasons, right? And they grade it out. 100 is A+ elite, 90 is A great, B 80 very good, C average 70, 60 is a D very bad, and 50 and below is F disastrous, okay? And what they do is each of 5 categories are weighted to create the overall score. The roster at 30%, the quarterback at 20%, the draft 15%, front office 15%, and coaching 20%. So it's a comprehensive ranking, and this is what ESPN is saying. And the experts dove in on additional analysis for all 32 teams, hitting on the biggest worries, stats to know, and what could change in the upcoming years along why each team landed where it did. Now, just for example, this year, the Buffalo Bills were the top team. Kansas City was 2. The Packers were tied for 3rd with the Rams. The Chargers were 5th. The Bengals were 6th. The Ravens 7th. Tampa Bay 8. I'm going to give you top 10 here. Indianapolis 9 and Cleveland tied for 10th with the 49ers. Okay. Now, I don't think any of that surprises people when you see and hear the names in the top 10. And that to me is okay because you take it in a vacuum. But of course, I went to look where the Falcons were on this list. And maybe to surprise or maybe not to surprise, the Falcons were absolutely dead last. They rated their overall roster a 30. They rated their quarterback a 32, which means dead last. Coaching 17, draft 26th, and front office 29. So they are in the bottom, let's call it 6, in 4 of these 5 categories with the exception of coaching. And I'm not even going to go through the write-up on it because, some of that stuff is subjective. But let's look objectively, and we've been over this before. And let me tell you why this is absolute hogwash and why the people who make these lists are prisoners of the moment. And I think that is the biggest thing, that people who make these lists are prisoners of the moment. I'll explain that, but first, a quick word from our friends at BlueNile.com. Guys, part of the jewelry business, is you're looking for either like wedding jewelry or just some fine jewelry to buy that loved one something you like. Well, BlueNile.com has it all. So if you're ready to pop that question, what you want to do is go to BlueNile.com because they have online tools. They're very easy. They'll let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. And then Blue Nile's bench jewelers are going to handcraft the perfect engagement ring so that each ring is one of a kind and it's special because it's designed by you. But on the other hand, if you're looking for that piece of fine jewelry, that way to say I love you or thank you or whatever it may be, and you're having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7. They're available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift on every single budget. So make that moment sparkle. with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get 50%, 50%, not 50%. That'd be amazing. But Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. And this podcast exclusive includes engagement rings. So use the code Locked On. That's code Locked On to get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your favorite forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, so back to this list here. Here is why these lists are hogwash and people are prisoners of the moment. Now, I just went back and looked at last year's list. Okay? Last year's list. And this is what happens because things can change dramatically in the NFL, but I don't think they changed that dramatically. Last year, the Falcons were 26th on this list. Their overall roster was 30. Their quarterback with Matt Ryan was 19. Their coaching was 19. Their draft was 19. And their front office was 25. Okay? Again, comparatively speaking to this year, every single category, with the exception of overall roster, had dropped. They were 30th last year. They're 30th this year. The quarterback obviously went down, and that's understandable because it's Matt Ryan. Coaching actually went up from 19 to 17, but draft went from 19 to 26, and front office went from 25 to 29. Now, either the people who made this don't really think very highly of Terry Fontenot, or they are just upset that the Falcons didn't take a high-level quarterback when they had an opportunity to do so. Okay. But still, they go 26-29. By the way, do you guys know who was at the bottom of the league last year? And no surprise, it was the Houston Texans. The Detroit Lions were 31st. The Philadelphia Eagles were 30th. And guess who was in at number 29? The Cincinnati Bengals. This year, the Bengals jumped to 6th on this list. They went from 29 to 6 in 1 year. So you're telling me, and this is why this list is hogwash. The draft for the Bengals last year was 28. The front office was 30th. They moved to 12th and 9th respectively in 1 year. Where they drafted at the back end of the draft. Like, you've got to be kidding me with this. And the even most laughable assertion, like the quarterback went from 13, Joe Burrow went from 13 to 5. I get it, okay? Overall roster went from 29 to 5 in 1 year. You're telling me they can improve the roster that much in 1 year? How about no? And the biggest laugher of all is that the coach went from 30th, the third worst coach in the league in 2021, to 11th. Zach Taylor is still a bad coach. This is laughable stuff. Absolutely laughable for a team to make that jump based off a playoff run where they got lucky, caught a good team on a bad day, and happened to get the best quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes to have his worst playoff game of his playoff career. Stop. Like, this is just ridiculous. And that's not a slight at the Bengals. It's a slight at the people who make this list. That is a joke that the Bengals could go from 29th to 6th because of one playoff run. Like I said, and I say this repeatedly, if the Bengals had gotten knocked out in the first round against the Raiders like they were supposed to, or got eliminated by the Titans like they should have been, guess what? They're not anywhere in the top 10 in this list. Top 12, yes. Playoff team, sure. But for crying out loud, I mean, that is head-scratching to me. Absolutely head-scratching that they could make a team be that much better. And oh, by the way, Zach Taylor didn't become a better coach. Players bailed him out. Zach Taylor, for my money, is one of the bottom 5 coaches in this league. And I've said that since he took over. He's a horrible in-game coach. Stinks. And I say all this to say, Falcons fans, when you see a list like this, don't fret. It doesn't mean anything. It's not worth the aggravation of thinking that your team is going to be this bad. They certainly don't have the worst quarterback in the league. And they may be close to the worst roster in the league. But for crying out loud, give Arthur Smith a little bit of credit here for what he can do and what he's been able to do with this team and this franchise and this roster. What was last year, and you'll see it again this year. All right, coming up next, more on Arthur Smith and why I think the job he's going to do is going to shock a lot of people. That's next right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta.